Hello, everyone, and welcome to this presentation on the first 5 years and the next 5 years of the Center for Congregational Song. So I thought we would start with a song. This is a lovely song by Therese Nomo, who John Thornburg worked with as he worked with the full committee that Therese was on for the United Methodist Church in Cameroon as they created a hymnal. And it's a simple song, but I think profound and beautiful and simple, about Jesus calming the storm. And this song actually takes place right before the storm is calmed. In the boat with Christ my Lord, on the wild stormy sea, all is well both in this hour and for all eternity. I-I-O. All is well in this hour. I-I-O. And for all eternity. So we go to the first 5 years of the center. Of course, it's not just the first 5 years, but actually before that, the vision for the center. In 2012, the Hymn Society began visioning and dreaming together, what is God calling us to be a part of? What change is God calling us to make in the world? And what could we do if nothing was stopping us? What would we do as an organization? And about a year later, at the fall board meeting, a phrase, the Center for Congregational Song, began to house all these ideas that came up during that dreaming process. And then Deb Loftus, along with many, many wonderful Hymn Society members, consultants, and all sorts of folks who helped make it successful, ran the endowment campaign from 2014 to 2017. And so the director was hired in 2015 as the endowment was coming to a close and it became clear it was going to be successful. We hired a center director, and that ended up being me. I was blessed to be chosen and continue to be grateful for that. And it was announced in 2015 at the annual conference in New Orleans. Of course, then it took about 2 years after the hire of the center director for the launch to happen. A lot of behind the scenes work needed to happen. Relationships needed to be built. Logistics needed to be figured out. What would it mean for the Hymn Society to go from one full-time executive director and a half-time admin to what we have now, which is 2 full-time staff people, a 3/4 time staff person, and a half-time staff person. So way more than doubled our staffing. And what would it mean for technological needs? All sorts of stuff needed to be figured out. And then we launched in 2017. There was a 2-day launch event in Dallas, and then various launch events across the US and Canada. So what worked? All these ideas were given or had and placed under this umbrella. And so part of the job was to implement all these things, restarting the writers' workshops that the Hymn Society had done in the 90s and early 2000s. It's working well. People are having a great time. They're feeling supported. New texts and tunes are being written all the time. The Ambassadors Program. We send out young but well-trained folks in the field to teach at universities and seminaries. So undergraduate students can begin to think about or discern whether church music and congregational song is something they're called to. And when and if they get a church job, what resources are out there to help their congregation sing and help them be successful as music ministers. Lots of content creation has been successful. The blogs have been read by a lot of folks, and a variety of voices have contributed to the blogs. podcasts. We're in our 5th season with Ben Brody as the host, and lots of different video resources have been created. So content creation has been going well and has been well received. Connection building. That's something that we continue to do well at, I think. Lots of new friends. Part of the role of the Center for Congregational Song and the Center Director in particular was a call to go out and make new friends. Make new friends and keep the old. One is silver and the other gold. And we've made lots of new friends. We've had lots of great collaborations, and I think the Hymn Society is the better for it. And we're beginning. I hope you can see the change in our membership and in the types of resources we have access to and are creating. And hopefully, it's an expansion of what we've done. Right? Not to the exclusion of anything else, but rather just expanding all that we have to offer and all who we are. And then the creative retreats, we've had a variety of creative retreats, some collaborative with other organizations, some on our own, like an interfaith improv retreat, other things like that have been successful. So things like that are going well. But we wouldn't be pushing ourselves. We wouldn't be learning and really striving to be our best if there weren't some things that didn't work well. The initial concept of having a big picture database of congregational song resources was good. It's a good concept, and I continue to believe that is needed, but we haven't been able to figure out how to do it well. It just hasn't worked. We've had a couple of different technological solutions that just didn't work. The user interfaces weren't quite right. We had to rely on volunteers to input data. We didn't have enough. And there's so much out there that it was really difficult to figure out how to prioritize and how to organize them in a way that made sense to the public and would actually be accessible and useful. So that hasn't worked. The pastors' workshops, we initially envisioned, the Hymn Society initially envisioned supporting pastors, especially those who are on solo calls or multi-point calls, who don't have any other staff, who don't have congregation members who have stepped up to lead the music. And so it often falls on the pastors. And we all know that seminaries just aren't training pastors to do that well. And they don't feel empowered or equipped to lead the church's song well. So how can we support them? How can we train them? How can we give them resources? We haven't been able to figure out how to get pastors in the same place to focus on this topic. There's so many other conferences and topics that pastors need to be going to. We haven't been able to crack that nut, and I'm not sure how. It just hasn't worked. So we continue to think about it and think about creative solutions, but that's something that hasn't worked so far. Writer retreat grants. We offered a grant for folks who want to put on a little retreat, even if it's just 2 or 3 of their colleagues to get together and to write congregational song. That hasn't worked. The writers' workshops have worked well, where people sign up and they pay, and we have clinicians. And we've also had some collaborative retreats. But the individual grants, no one took us up on it. I don't know why. That's something we can look into, why it didn't quite work, but no one took the money. So that's interesting. And regional events. We initially envisioned the Center for Congregational Song as having a pretty robust and regular regional presence. So, West Coast Canada, Central Canada, Eastern Canada, Midwest, South, Southeast, and having these regular, smaller events on congregational song that would kind of supplement and be in addition to the annual conference of the Hymn Society, which was designed as a more national, international conference. What we found, and I think this was really the nail in the coffin, was the pandemic. But even before the pandemic, being in so many places physically was both financially and in a personnel standpoint rather impractical. And a better use of our time and energy and resources was to focus more on digital things, to focus more on the really specific events like writing the church's song for songwriters, and things like that, rather than more generic congregational song gatherings on a regional basis. So that didn't seem to pan out either. And that's okay. Then, of course, the pandemic changed everything for everybody. For us, for the Center for Congregational Song, we pivoted in a few ways. It provided us with some unique opportunities. First was we couldn't do the ambassadors program anymore because that's in person, right? That's at universities and colleges and seminaries. So our ambassadors did a webinar series, and it's free. There's like 7 webinars. They're free. They're on really basic but important topics. And so now students have access, or anyone has access to them at all times. Coffee and Hymns popped up. This is a monthly broadcast that I do. It used to be Facebook Live, now it's YouTube Live. I drink coffee, talk about hymns. Right? It's simple, 20 minutes. I've done some interviews just for funsies. It's designed to be relaxed, but informative, and hopefully just a time where you can sit down and take a breath before you begin your work again for the church or whatever you do on a weekly basis. And then COVID carols. I don't even remember how it happened, but people started submitting ridiculous hymn texts to Christmas carol tunes, all about COVID, to kind of make fun of it and make light of it, even though it was very serious. And but some people found, and myself included, that the only way to make it through it was to have a sense of humor about it, and to find some levity in an otherwise tragic situation. And then we recorded the songs in sign language. We collaborated with, I don't know how this happened either, but we got hooked up with a school that does sign language interpretation training. And so we had students who were learning how to be interpreters, and they signed the COVID carols, and we had a little concert. It was awesome. So some really interesting pivots for the pandemic. So that kind of encompasses the first 5 years of the Center for Congregational Song. We did a lot of stuff. We hired a director. We finished the endowment campaign. We launched the center. We have so many programs and things that are happening on a regular basis now that's just a given. But it took a lot of work to get all of that implemented, to find the right people to lead the things, like Ben Brody with the podcast and our blog teams. And we're now on our 3rd iteration of our blog team, because, people come in, they write, and then, life changes and they have to back out. And so we get some voices, then we get some new voices. And we failed at some stuff, but man, we learned a lot. And then we pivoted for the pandemic. One of the things we did at the very beginning that I think was wise, and I have come back to these on a regular basis to make sure that I'm standing on firm ground, is our guiding stances. Our guiding stances are all based around the Hymn Society's belief statement, which is: the holy act of singing together shapes faith, heals brokenness, transforms lives, and renews peace. And these characteristics can apply to both individuals as well as corporate bodies. And I love this little caveat. I think John Thornburg put me onto this. Brian Hehn had a version of this for his hymn texts, about changing his hymn texts. These stances only change when we are told a story or share an experience that persuades us to change them. In other words, we really believe these, and we're pretty sure they're right. But by golly, if we have an experience or we're told a story that convicts us that one of these needs to change, then we'll change them. So our guiding stances on shapes faith. We celebrate the width and depth of variety in the church's song throughout history, recognizing that each genre, like each culture or each person, brings unique gifts and challenges to the church. We celebrate the width and depth of instrumentation that is available to lead the church's song, recognizing that how instruments are played and or used can enhance or detract from the congregation's song. There has never been a time in the church's history when new songs were not being written. There has never been a time in the church's history when new and old songs were not being critiqued and criticized The church's song has always been intentionally curated and inevitably winnowed. And because of these processes, some songs endure and others do not. The church's song has always included those that prove timeless, as well as those that are only useful for a particular time and place. Our guiding stances for Heals Brokenness include: collaboration and teamwork honors each other's different gifts and therefore makes everyone stronger by building up partnerships, strengthening relationships, and amplifying each other's ministries. I think a great example of how we've lived into this particular guiding stance is that along the same timeline as the Center for Congregational Song, Music That Makes Community was formed. And what Music That Makes Community is built around and has thrived in doing is teaching people how to lead songs without the aid of paper, right? Paperless song. They do a great job of teaching that and leading retreats where people learn repertoire that works well, paperless, and how to teach it and lead it. So we don't do a lot of that because they're doing a great job of it. So we've worked hard to cheer them on, to let people know about Music That Makes Community. There's no need for us to step on their toes when they're doing a great job, when we can just support their work, because collaboration and teamwork honors each other's different gifts. Because CCS exists in a Western and Anglo-dominated society, it is important to recognize that songs composed in Western Anglo-centric musicological idioms have no more or less intrinsic value for the church than contributions from other cultures and parts of the world. Parachurch organizations like the church itself have long struggled with many justice issues, including systemic racism and proper resource allocation. Therefore, we must do our part to work towards justice and reconciliation throughout the human family, and song can and should be a force for change. Transforms lives. The church's song arises from the people and therefore exists wherever faith and life intersect. Transformation by God's grace through our song can happen regardless of personal stylistic preference. Man, I wish I could just have that as a t-shirt. Maybe I'll make one. We celebrate that the church's song, like preaching and other art forms, can proclaim the word. And finally, renews peace. At its best, singing together enables unity when perhaps spoken conversation is difficult or impossible. At its best, our song reminds us and inspires us to be better versions of ourselves. And we seek conversation partners who have strong, thoughtful convictions and who approach their work with humility and collegiality. Those guiding stances were created in large part and with a huge amount of help from my advisory panel or advisory group, which is a group of people who care deeply about the hymn society and want what's best for me as the center director, so that we can thrive. And they acted as mentors and guides. Especially a lot of their work was pivotal during this formation time, and the guiding stances are a direct result of their help and their mentorship and guidance. So let's sing a song, and then I'm going to talk about the next 5 years. What's coming up? This song is by Audrey Assad, and it was written during a writing retreat that we collaborated with the Porter's Gate in 2000. Oh, it must have been 2019 because that's when she wrote it right there. So 2019, we met in Nashville and had a wonderful retreat, and she wrote the text to this well-known tune. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. You are speaking truth to power. You are laying down our swords. replanting every vineyard till a brand new wine is poured. Your peace will make us one. I've seen you in our home fires burning with a quiet light. You are mothering and feeding in the wee hours of the night. Your gentle love is patient. You will never fade or tire. Your peace will make us one. In the beauty of the lilies, you are born across the sea, with a glory in your bosom that is still transfiguring, dismantling our empires till each one of us is free. Your peace will make us one. So that's Audrey, and we can sing it through if you like. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. You are speaking truth to power. You are laying down our swords, replanting every vineyard till a brand new wine is poured. Your peace will make us one. I've seen you in our home fires burning with a quiet light. You are mothering and feeding in the wee hours of the night. Your gentle love is patient. You will never fade or tire. Your peace will make us one. Glory, glory. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Your peace will make us one. In the beauty of the lilies, you were born across the sea, with a glory in your bosom that is still transfiguring, dismantling our empires till each one of us is free. Your peace will make us one. Glory, glory. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Your peace will make us one. So what is gonna happen the next 5 years? Who knows? I don't know, but we do have some plans. First is we just implemented or just invited and they're beginning to publish new blogs. Our new blog team, Shannon Baker, who's in the top middle here, Michaela Turner, who's in the bottom right, and then Lao Ying Wai on the bottom left. So this is our new blog team who will be creating content for the blog, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what these new voices will have to offer. We just launched last year Puentes, which means bridge or bridges. And it's a fully bilingual Spanish and English blog. Occasionally, it'll also have Portuguese entries. It's edited by Dr. Maria Montero and can be found at puentes. Oh no, typo. Luckily, I can just change it right now. Congregationalsong.org. So we've already been publishing with this. We have a few entries already. This year, we're going to be increasing the number of posts. And it's designed for people serving in locations that speak either primarily Spanish or bilingual congregations. We are expanding our podcast. Ben Brody has created 5 seasons. and I think the sixth is coming along. But we think it's time to expand who the hosts are. Ben's not going to go away. He's going to keep doing great work, but we think that a new model of shared hosting is possible and would bring some new voices as well as some new ideas and new connections to who might be a part of the podcast. So we're going to invite a host of hosts, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens with the podcast there. We just announced, and we'll be running our first Latinx connection program. So the idea here is Latinos in the U.S., especially second and third generation, often struggle with connecting to their heritage. They grew up in an assimilated way. Their church experiences might have been dominated by more Anglo-oriented experiences, English language, and so there's a barrier there of them connecting to their heritage. What does it mean for me to be Latino in America? What does it mean for me to lead a congregation that has newly arrived Spanish-speaking immigrants, as well as third or fourth or fifth generation English-only Latinos in the same congregation? How do we navigate these dynamics? That's not a question for me to answer. However, we have a partner in Red Criarte, which is a pan-Latin American worship arts group that they were at the Centennial Conference last year for the Hymn Society, and I got to spend time with some of their leaders at the World Council of Churches last year, and we concocted this program that we're going to meet in Colombia, and we have a faculty that's fully bilingual from both the U.S. and across Latin America, and we're going to connect U.S.-based Latino worship leaders with Latin American worship leaders, and we're going to learn together. We're going to make music together and spend 4 full days in Colombia at a Reformed seminary in Barranquilla. So really looking forward to that and what happens after that. What relationships will be built? What will be the next steps to empower these folks to live into their ministry to the fullest, to connect to their heritage, both musically and otherwise, and then to build relationships with each other to see what they do in the future in collaborations. Then we have a new strategic plan coming up. The Hymn Society Executive Committee is beginning to work under the direction of our Executive Director, Mike McMahon, on a new strategic plan. That will, of course, include the Center for Congregational Song, as everything we do is in service to and on behalf of the Hymn Society. And so, we'll be working with the executive committee, a consultant, the membership, as many folks as possible to figure out over the next 3 to 5 years, what do we need to be doing? What is God calling us to do? And how can we go about getting that work done? So that's an exciting time. And then finally, pray for the Hymn Society and all those working to shape faith and heal brokenness, transform lives, and renew peace. We are in this work together. There are so many of us doing this work, not just in the Hymn Society, but across the world. Folks who lead congregational song, write congregational song, and just lift up a voice of praise to God, who are striving to become the best we can be, to honor God and to work towards that kingdom on earth. So pray for us as we are a part of that work. Oh man, I forgot before I go. Earlier today, had a great meeting. Reparation Royalties is another program that's going to be coming down the pike over the next 5 years. We've already started it as kind of a pilot to help shepherd people who are already in this process. What does it mean for us to provide reparations through copyright or other mechanisms directly linked to congregational song or choral music in the church? If that's something that's interesting to you, check it out online as well. So much is going on. I can't even keep track of it all. I'll do my best. But thanks for being here and for going on this quick little journey of the first 5 years and the next 5 years of the Center for Congregational Song. Thank you for your support. the way that we are financed and supported is first through your prayers, but also your generosity, general donations to the Hymn Society, your attendance at events, especially the annual conference of the Hymn Society, through your membership to the Hymn Society. All these things help support this ongoing work that reaches so many people and helps to support and enable all these church musicians and pastors and songwriters to continue to strive to do their best. So thank you, and I'll see you in 5 years.